Hey traders, Richard here. In this video, I want to discuss an important consideration that you might need to take if you would like to pass or help to assist you pass your next trading challenge. And it's all got to do with the actual market trading sessions during which you trade. That's understanding the markets you're trading, whether these are the Forex markets or the indices, and knowing when most of the volume typically appears during the course of the day. Typically, a lot of volume leads to significant price movements and fluctuations. And it's typically when you get your best type of setups. So if you're not already familiar with this, then just quickly on the graph over here, you can see there are, especially for the Forex market, four different trading sessions. That's typically called your Sydney, Tokyo, London, and New York trading sessions. And this is on the Eastern Standard Time time zone that I've set this graph for or created this graph for. So if you're in a different time zone, potentially outside of America, then you'll have to obviously go and figure out when those times actually are, when those starting and ending times are for each one of these four sessions. All right, so I just quickly want to focus here before I jump onto the charts on the London and New York session, for example. You can see here that there is a nice big overlap between the 8 a.m. Eastern and the 12 midday Eastern Standard Time. All right, so during that time where London and the New York session overlaps, typically when you're going to have most of the volume. So potentially a careful consideration that you need to take if you're trading something like the Euro US dollar, for example, or the pound US dollar. So currency pairs that, related to these time zones where they overlap like that's typically when you're going to have your biggest price fluctuations. If you trade a Euro US dollar, for example, during London session or the pound US dollar, there will still be a lot of volume, obviously insane a lot of volume in the forex markets, regardless of which time that country, for example, wakes up. Like New York, for example, start doing business at 8 a.m., but in London or Tokyo and Sydney, a lot of big banks will be exchanging dollars for the yen or for the euro, whatever, during outside times where the Americans aren't awake, for example. But that being said, if you do structure your strategy to look for setups during times where these sessions actually overlap, is potentially we're going to get your best type of setups. Okay, let's jump right over to a chart and actually see what these time zones look like on an actual chart. Okay, let's next take a look at the indices and when's the most favorable time to trade during those sessions. Again, this chart's actually sent to an Eastern Standard Time, and on the chart over here, again, I marked up the beginning of the day and the end of the day. It could be any day, right? But this is on the NASDAQ 100. You can do the same for the S&P 500 or the Dow for that matter. But what I've marked here in this box is between the 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to the 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's basically the opening and closing time of the stock markets. So, which will then give you most of the volume in these indices to trade. Now, indices like the NASDAQ 100 and ES 500 are basically futures markets. All right. So, there will be times that they trade prior to these, the session, as well as after the session, right? So they actually trade into the open of the stock market and out of the close of the stock market, as shown on this rectangle over here. This is generally called your Globex session, and it's typically when you have the least volume in your indices. Globex session being the overnight session is another term for that. When most of the Americans are asleep, when the stock market opens again, boom, you can clearly see you've got a lot of wide-ranging candlesticks over there. Could be any time frame. This is just set to a 30-minute, but I think it's pretty clear to see there that you all very quickly had a nice pop in this upwards trend. Could go on anyway that day. But most of the significant moves will happen during that session. A lot of traders that I know that trade the indices, including myself, we actually based our strategies during that time window. Right, so that's a quick overview of the different time zones that are involved in trading Forex. as well as when most of the liquidity or volume is traded on the indices. So if depending where you are in the world, you can then go to decide which currency pair, for example, might be more active during your time zone that you live in. If you trade in US, maybe the pound US dollar, euro US dollar. Again, it's completely up to you, but please consider the importance of how volume can actually affect price directional move and how that can actually benefit when you do actually trade during those time periods. Again, thanks for watching. Hopefully this information can help you pass your next prop trading challenge, and I'll see you back next in the next one. Take care and goodbye.